They're underneath the tree, across Bradbury, north of the Ramada.
Small plane has hit the main branch, and there is a fire.
Go and get to the backside pretty quick without getting blocked in.
Black smoke everywhere. Some flames coming around the corner.
We need all these vehicles removed. If you're not police or fire or official persons, please remove your vehicles from the area.
For about 10 minutes this morning, it was a scene of panic. A military plane, obviously in trouble, crashes into the front of a crowded hotel lobby. When the smoke had cleared, 9 bodies were found in the rubble. Investigators say it may be weeks before they know what went wrong.
This is a Channel 6 News special report. A day of tragedy, the A-7 crash.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dionne Willis.
And I'm Clyde Lee. It was the worst air disaster in the history of this city. The toll tonight stands at 9 dead, 6 injured, and authorities are hopeful they have located all of the victims. The dead were all in the Ramada Inn located near Indianapolis International Airport and were killed this morning when an Air Force fighter bomber crashed into that building. Greg Todd has the story.
An emergency landing had become a disaster. Emergency phone lines were flooded with calls.
Yeah, I just seen a plane go down in Park Fletcher. Small plane has hit the main branch, and there is a fire. Ramada Inn at the airport, get as many planes as you can. The whole hotel is just blown up.
What happened out there?
It blew up. It's an explosion. The whole Ramada Inn at the airport.
A disabled Air Force jet trying to make an emergency landing overshot the runway in fog and clipped the roof of a bank branch. The jet then slammed into the second floor of the Airport Ramada right above the lobby.
I saw the jet coming in. I saw an explosion, and after the explosion, I saw one parachute open up. And after the parachute opened up, the jet had come in, came off the bank here, Bank 1, and then went into the front of the hotel.
And we ran out here to the front of the building, and of course the front of the building was just a mass of flames. And off to the east of the building, there was at least one person that was on fire, and they tried to get him down. I think they got him down about 3 times before they could actually get him physically put out. It's a real good thing that the fire trucks were able to get here as quick as they were in here, probably just a matter of 2 or 3 minutes.
But even then, an out-of-control fire was sweeping through the 7-story, 155-room hotel. Before the crash, many people on the ground could see the jet was in serious trouble.
When it really caught my eye, the plane was just kind of floating. Then I saw the explosion. The plane went down very, very fast. Then I saw the pilot eject and watched him come down.
Did you see an explosion in the air before it hit?
Yes, definitely. Very, very big explosion.
Usually on the jet, you can see the exhaust coming out of the back of it, and I didn't see exhaust coming out. His wings were kind of tipping back and forth as if he was trying to keep control of it. It looked like he'd rode it out about as long as he could, and then, like I said, I saw the explosion from the canopy coming off the plane.
Many of the 105 registered guests had checked out of the hotel by 9:15 in the morning. There was a staff of 20 on duty, and several people had arrived for meetings and seminars at the hotel, including this woman.
We heard an explosion, turned around, seen a fireball, and some smoke come in the room, and I just ran out.
2 doctors were having breakfast in the hotel's Summerfields restaurant, very near the impact.
Well, I was facing the window, and I saw the plane. It's a jet fighter, I think. And I thought it was landing, but was landing very, very close to the hotel. But suddenly it hit the roof of the bank, and it slid very low. And just all I saw is a ball of fire, and everything shattered around us. The windows, the chairs.
It was just, 15 feet away from us. We saw a big ball of fire, and everything was shattering around. We dug under the table, and I grabbed my briefcase and ran out of the back door of the hotel.
A hotel guest from Montreal was talking on the phone when the jet slammed right below his 3rd-floor room.
There was an almighty crash, which I thought the elevator, it sounded like the elevator collapsed. I thought that's what my initial thought was. And then I turned around, and coming through the door was smoke. So I opened the door, and it completely covered, the hallway was covered in smoke. There was people running around panicking. There was another big explosion, and that's when I just headed for the exit. There was somebody trying to direct us, and she was pretty good. but we got to one exit, it was on fire. And we're on the 3rd floor, and it was filled with smoke. So we just rushed, everybody just rushed for the other side of the building.
He feared for the lives of 3 people in the room next door he had just talked to in the hallway.
No, I knew there was some people in the room next to me, and I didn't see them get out, and they were virtually above it, too.
Room checks found no evidence of bodies. All 9 known fatalities were found in the lobby or nearby meeting rooms. Bodies were taken to an area of the parking lot away from horrified relatives arriving to learn the fate of loved ones. Several people were injured, including the pilot, Major Bruce Teagarden of Las Vegas. The 35-year-old pilot with 2,000 flying hours under his belt is in good condition at the Fort Benjamin Harrison Hospital. He ejected to safety when impact was imminent. A somber and concerned Mayor Hudnut surveyed the scene and concluded it was the city's worst disaster in 24 years.
Well, I think this is probably the worst thing to hit the city since the Coliseum disaster in 1963 in terms of multiple casualties, multiple fatalities. It's obviously a disaster of significant proportions.
The mayor tried to offer words of encouragement to relatives who heard about the disaster and arrived at the scene. In a neighboring building, they were told what little authorities knew, then taken to the nearby Adams Mark Hotel to await further word. Friends and relatives were shocked and confused. A hotel switchboard operator had called his parents right after the crash.
Around, I'd say 9:40, my son called, and he said, "Mom," he said, "I'm okay." I said, "Are you hurt?" He said, "No, Mom, I'm not hurt." I said, "Okay, we'll be there in a minute." And he said, "Okay," and the phone, I don't know if it went dead, hung up or what, because I was upset, and so was he.
So you're waiting now, not knowing.
We cannot find out information.
We still don't know the fate of 21-year-old Christopher Evans tonight. This woman has 2 daughters who work at the Ramada. She arrived fearing the worst to find one had the day off. The other was inside, but escaped.
I just knowed she, was going to be dead, but I thank God she ain't.
A lot of people are giving thanks tonight. At one point, authorities estimated as many as 170 people may have been in the hotel. Registered guests, employees, restaurant customers, and people attending meetings and seminars. It was probably fewer than 170. But it's obvious tonight, many, many people narrowly escaped one of the worst tragedies Indianapolis has seen in many years. The worst tragedy Indianapolis International Airport has ever seen.
And as the case with all these types of tragedies, it's amazing how one person can meet their fate while the person right next to them walks away unscathed.
Stories are going to be unfolding for many days here.
All right, very nice job, Greg. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, all day rescue and cleanup efforts were centering on the Ramada Inn, but there was a forgotten side. There was also a lot of work going on at the Bank One branch, which absorbed the initial impact of the crash. 6 employees and 3 customers were in the bank at the time of the crash. All of them escaped without injuries. The impact sheared more than half the bank's roof. As workers combed through the debris, bank officials were quietly rounding up safety deposit boxes and other valuables that might have been vulnerable. Bank officials say it will be at least 2 months before this Park Fletcher branch can reopen. And in the meantime, they say they will try to conduct business from an adjacent drive-in window operation. Well, more than 13 hours after the crash, the work for firefighters and investigators is not over. They are still at the scene of the crash site, and they are joined by Cy Jenkins, who has been at the scene for that same 13 hours and is here with a live report. Cy?
Dion, in fact, there's still considerable activity taking place here tonight. We're in front of the Ramada Inn, next to a large searchlight that has been lighting up the front of the hotel since darkness. You may be able to see some of the activity still taking place up there. There are investigators. We believe them to be military investigators who have been going through the rooms, have been looking for evidence as they try to put the story together about what happened here. We know that valuables were removed from the rooms in the hotel earlier this evening and taken down for safekeeping. But there's other activity that's been taking place here tonight, too. Earlier, you mentioned the bank that was damaged. Well, these are carpenters that have been busy for much of the evening trying to erect temporary walls to secure that bank. The people inside that bank actually did not know that a plane had struck it. They thought that the roof had just collapsed when the accident occurred this morning. And in a building next to that activity, to my right here, a news conference, in fact, is still going on. It was the Air Force calling reporters together here about a half an hour ago to express the Air Force's official heartfelt sympathy for the families of the victims and for those who were injured in the accident. The spokesman for the Air Force says the Air Force definitely understands the pain and the suffering that has taken place here. He also spoke about Air Force procedures and policies related to a pilot ejecting from an aircraft.
Well, first of all, let me just tell you that Air Force policy is very simple. We obviously, first and foremost, try to save lives. If we have an aircraft malfunction like this, we try to minimize danger to people. The last consideration, obviously, is safety of the airplane, if you will, the machinery.
Major Thomas Hall added that the pilot, Major Bruce Teagarden, has not been debriefed now. As we mentioned earlier, he's in good condition tonight at the Army Hospital at Fort Benjamin Harrison. I'm Cy Jenkins on the scene here. Obviously, there will be considerable activity taking place for the rest of the evening. Now back to you, Dion.
Cy, before you go, any word yet on that possible malfunction from the Air Force? Any tentative answers?
No, and in fact, they were not even willing to discuss that very much at all of this briefing. You see, they have a lot of investigations to conduct on their own, and they haven't even begun that. This will be taking place over the next couple of days and perhaps for the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks very much, Cy. A range of emotions today, and now the search for the answers really begins in earnest. Clyde?
In the aftermath of the disaster, there is at least more information about the dead and the injured. 9, as we say, are known dead. 4 of them have been positively identified. 6 injured were treated at area hospitals. This is the list of the dead identified so far. All were Ramada Inn employees. 30-year-old Beth Louise Goldberg of 501 Fairway Drive, Indianapolis. 26-year-old Brenda Joyce Henry, 602 North Livingston. 37-year-old Emma Jean Brownlee of 2007 North Talbot. 18-year-old Alan Mantor of Amo, Indiana. The injured and their conditions, 35-year-old Major Bruce Teagarden, the pilot, good condition. 41-year-old Thomas Murray of Indianapolis, extremely critical condition. 52-year-old Betty Gonzalez of Indianapolis, fair condition. 28-year-old Darrell Crenshaw, a firefighter, serious condition but improving. 43-year-old Jack Cameron of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, treated and released. 21-year-old David Rosen, a Wayne Township fireman from Mattoon, Illinois, treated and released. Now, there are still 5 unidentified bodies in the Marion County morgue. It will be sometime tomorrow before Marion County coroner Dr. Dennis Nicholas has positively identified those people from dental records. At least 3 of the unidentified dead are known to be Ramada employees. Possibly all 5 are. We will know more on that tomorrow.
And we will have more on today's tragedy in just a moment.
And it slid very low, and just all I saw is a ball of fire, and everything shattered around us, the windows, the chairs.
Oh, McDLT, we're finally together.
Salad, we're so different.
But we have a lot in common, too.
Like what?
Like price. Imagine a McDLT medium Coca-Cola and regular fries is just $1.99. Ah. And any McDonald's fresh tossed salad with a medium Coke is just $1.99.
What a choice.
I thought I was your favorite salad. This is the end.
No, the beginning. The deal starts Friday.
Huh?
There's no sign of life. It's just a part of charm. I'm lying in the rain. So I try. Whoa! Never gonna fall for what's beside me, Mama. Now I know the choice is mine. Money up, money up.
Geez, I gotta get to work.
Then cube the sirloin.
I'd slice it.
Then add a can of tomato sauce.
Why not use fresh tomatoes?
And cook at 350 for 60 minutes.
Too long. 40 minutes at 300.
Hey, you!
Me?
You should come up with recipes of your own.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Alex, your free recipes are worth telling people about. You should go on TV.
Good idea.
Alex's recipe of the week, because a little help can make a difference.
Enter the world of singers, stuntmen, and Stallone on the next Entertainment Tonight. First, Willie Nelson is on the TT trail again in his new comedy western, Once Upon a Texas Train. Then,
I'm Chuck Norris.
Join me for part 2 of our look at Hollywood's unsung heroes, stuntmen.
Plus, Gene Wolfe gets the inside scoop again with an exclusive report on Rambo 3. Only on the next Entertainment Tonight.
At a special time, 11:30 after Channel 6 News.
The pilot of the ill-fated A-7, Bruce Teagarden, had to make some very big decisions very quickly today. He was between Indianapolis and Terre Haute. He was at 31,000 feet. But without an engine and a heavy jet, he would run out of two precious commodities, time and altitude.
The A-7 fighter bomber has been a workhorse of the military. It was used extensively during the Vietnam War. Its strength is its maneuverability. It can skim the terrain, pop into a combat zone, knock out the source of enemy ground fire, and be on its way. It does not fly the speed of sound. It has only one engine. Some pilots who have flown the A-7 say its single engine and relatively short wingspan call for good piloting when everything's running right. And one veteran A-7 jock says without power, it has the aerodynamics of a rock. Without power today, Major Bruce Teagarden popped out of a thin cloud cover. He was over the airport, but he said he was too high to land. He was heading out to the northeast, began a turn to approach another runway, but by that time, he was too low and too slow.
From the point he ejected and landed at in Park Fletcher, he was only about 1 street or 2 streets over from where the impact was, which means he had to be into his turn and ejected very low. The information I have that he said to the tower was, I'm looking for an open field, I got to get out.
The pilot's attempt at landing at Indianapolis can be viewed in a number of ways. He was over 40 miles from Terre Haute, a less populated area, but he was only 15 miles from Indianapolis, more reachable at 31,000 feet. The aircraft hit a packed hotel, but his attempt to glide his plane to safety, not bailing out until the last moment, is considered incredible by other military pilots. One veteran says the smart pilot would have bailed out at 10,000 feet in an uncontrolled situation. Teagarden bailed out at 800 feet. The results of an investigation into the pilot's actions may not be known for quite a while, but there is a rule in flying, and it holds true whether it is military or civilian. The ultimate responsibility for the aircraft rests with the pilot in command.
It is difficult to imagine just what goes on in the mind of a pilot when faced with emergencies such as today's flameout. Well, joining us now is a pilot, Dave Raver, who has accumulated more than 18,000 hours as a Navy pilot flying all types of high-performance aircraft. Thanks very much for being with us. You've trained to avoid situations like this. What kind of training to avoid high-population situations would this pilot have had, maybe ignored?
I would say probably a good 60 to 80% of a pilot's training is in emergency situations like this, because it almost has to be instinctive when a situation like this happens. But as far as avoiding populated areas, that would only be maybe for low altitude flying or situations like that.
Dave, let's talk about the performance of an aircraft like this one when the engine goes out. I think a lot of us have the preconceived notion that if the plane engine goes, it falls straight down. What happens at 31,000 feet? How far can you go?
That is a misconception, Clyde, because in a small training airplane, Piper or Cessna, their glide ratios are like 7 or 8 to 1. This airplane probably had a glide ratio of 9 to 1, so this airplane can actually glide further at a certain given altitude than any small training airplane civilian-wise.
So from 31,000 feet, he has some safety and altitude to make some decisions.
At 31,000 feet, he should be able to glide about 57 miles.
A lot of the witnesses mentioned seeing an explosion. What could that explosion have been?
Barring anything happening inside the airplane that we're not aware of, the ejection sequence has a couple explosions happening. There are charges that get rid of the canopy, and then after that there's a rocket that pushes the pilot out of the airplane. So there are a couple explosions that are happening naturally in this situation.
All right, Dave Raver, who has accumulated 18 hours military, a total of over 22,000 altogether, now chairman of Air International. Thanks for being with us and offering your expertise by way of your experiences as a pilot. We'll take a look at how the city handled today's emergency in just a moment.
Stay with us.
Well, I think this is probably the worst thing to hit the city since the Coliseum disaster in 1963 in terms of multiple casualties, multiple fatalities. It's obviously a disaster of significant proportions.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Burger King introduces a new burger with a genuine Western flavor. The Bullseye Barbecue Burger. 2 flame-broiled burgers on a Western bun with melted cheese, sizzling bacon, and topped with a smoky Western-style barbecue sauce.
The Bullseye Barbecue Burger won't be around for long, so get it while you can. You only have to ride as far west as Burger King, the best food for fast times.
Central Indiana is on the move. New things are happening each day. More than can be brought home to you with just 1 hour of news. So when everyone else has rushed through their hour of news, we're still bringing you more. Weekdays, Channel 6 News at 5 with Howard Caldwell and Barbara Lewis, and Channel 6 News at 6 with Clyde Lee and Dion Willis. A full 90 minutes of local news. When it comes to getting all the news, weather, and sports, count on us, Indiana. Channel 6 News.
Do you ever feel lonely even in the midst of a crowd? Have you experienced feelings of isolation and depression even though your family is around you? The next Oprah Winfrey Show, we talk to people who have felt overwhelming feelings of loneliness, who feel there is no one they can really talk with, no one who really cares. Find out what you're doing to cause your loneliness on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
The Oprah Winfrey Show at 10 a.m. on WRTV Channel 6. The greatest victory in the history of Olympic hockey, and the time is here again. Blue Cross and Blue Shield, the Associated Group, and WRTV Channel 6 present Face Off 87, USA versus the USSR, Sunday, December 20th at Market Square Arena. Join in the fast-paced, hard-hitting excitement as action begins at 7:30. Tickets are available at MSA box office, all Ticketmaster locations, or charge by phone by calling 297-5151 or 1-800-284-3030.
Today's tragedy was an intensely human story. There are many people who are forced to deal with the harsh reality of death brought on by tragedies such as today's air crash, and among them, the firefighters and other rescue personnel who were among the first on the scene. Well, Norman Cox tonight explores their story.
The fire is out and the victims removed, but for firefighters, it isn't over. Seeing death and destruction on such a massive scale can put them under tremendous stress. And even those who've been there before say there's no way to prepare for what's about to be encountered.
When we came around the corner, the first thing that the firefighters saw was a fireball and several floors burning, basically, and people outside who were actually on fire.
The Indianapolis Fire Department Tactical Rescue Team pulled out most of the victims. Most had never seen anything like this. One man found 6 separate bodies.
It can be very stressful. It's very important to try to keep your emotions within yourself to get the job done. I relied a lot upon support from a fellow firefighter.
While searching for survivors, firefighters have to quickly disregard the dead and move on. But that can exact its toll later after time for reflection.
We have 2 or 3 new personnel assigned to Station 7, fairly new on the job, that I could see, and in myself, you react to it then because your adrenaline's down and you realize you're dealing with these people that have been almost burned beyond recognition.
After living through a nightmare like this, many firefighters find themselves reliving the horror, try as they might to avoid it.
It flashes back in your mind, you know, you wonder more about the person's family. You know, I was glad I didn't see any children. If I'd seen some children, then it would have really been bad.
To prevent long-term emotional repercussions, some fire departments provide psychological counseling for their men who've gone through such a trauma. Some firefighters have already had counseling tonight. Others will have it in the days ahead. Norman Cox, Channel 6 News.
Mayor William Hudnut is calling today's tragedy the worst disaster the city has seen in at least 2 decades. Hudnut said the recovery will be long and hard and has nothing but praise for the rescue and emergency operations.
It's obviously a heartbreaking experience, and all I could say to them was my hand in yours, and the city is with you in this bereavement that you're going through, and your hurt is our hurt, and your loss is our loss. You know, and ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for all of us. And we are united this evening in grief and in sympathy to the loved ones and the family members of those who lost their lives in the tragic disaster today. It was a harrowing experience this afternoon, the identification process and all the rest of it. And these people have literally been through hell. And what we have to do is to put our arms around them and let them know of our loving concern.
Hindsight always is much better. It's 2020, that's for sure. Has anybody come to you ever, either from Airport Authority or people planning, and say, maybe we shouldn't put hotels so close to airports? Of course, they are all over the country.
They are all over the country, and I don't think you can say that. This was a freak accident. He came in too high. He didn't have any power. He couldn't control these engine, and he had to eject. It was just one of those very unfortunate circumstances that can happen, you know, around an airport, anywhere, any time. And you try your best to control the situation. The pilot made the decision to come to Indianapolis rather than going to Terre Haute because it was 3 times farther away, roughly speaking, to Terre Haute. But coming down from 31,000 feet, he simply was too high when he came in over the airport, so he was directed to vector around and go in on the runway that ran from the southwest to the southeast to the northwest, and he didn't get there.
This really ran across city-county lines in terms of everybody jumping in. Emergency preparedness, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 today? And are there any lessons learned, things that maybe should be done better?
Well, I would say that on a scale of 1 to 10, the way in which the emergency personnel cooperated today and responded to this tragedy was a 10. They did very, very well. There was a lot of professionalism. It was an extraordinary expression of expertise in action. The first units on the scene were from the airport who were on the runway waiting for him to land, and when he did, and then when he dropped down off the radar screen, they immediately went to the site and were there within 2 minutes. The Wayne Township Fire Department was there within 3 minutes, and other emergency personnel came in together. The law enforcement people and the firefighting and emergency response teams all worked beautifully all day long.
Mayor Hudnut, who was in our studios just a short time ago.
We'll be back in a moment with some final thoughts.
We saw a big ball of fire, and everything was shattering around. We dug under the table, and I grabbed my briefcase and ran out of the back door of the hotel.
It's the sensation, the feel, the experience. It's reflected in the way he lives and drives. His choice for performance, Dunlop.
Hi, I'm Jim Stewart, and we're unleashing the legend of Dunlop here in central Indiana. We're the largest Dunlop dealer in the state, and right now you'll get a great deal on the world's tire at any of the Jim Stewart Tire and Auto Service Center locations. There's one near you.
Unleash the legend, Dunlop.
I remember when staining wood was one big messy headache. One coat was never enough. But with Carver Trip, it's different. Thick and color-rich, not thin and watery. Twice as much pigment as other stains. Real pigment, too. Best of all, it's easy to use. Why, just one coat gives you perfect results. The way I see it, when you buy Carver Trip, you're buying top quality.
On the next She's the Sheriff, the station house is a real zoo.
Are these filthy, disease-ridden creatures yours?
No, I think they work here. And Hildy has her hands full. Because Max is going ape.
Sheriff Hildy Granger is personally responsible for abusing innocent primates.
Will Max's mischief hurt Hildy?
I knew you'd understand.
Or does she have the last laugh? There's plenty of monkey business with Suzanne Summers on the next She's the Sheriff.
Saturday night at 8:30 on WRTV Channel 6.
Take a look at the next Will Shriner Show.
You remember her as Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch. Now singer-actress Florence Henderson has a new real-life marriage, and she'll tell us all about it. Then meet good guy Gordon Thompson, who plays Dynasty bad boy Adam Carrington. Plus learn about the latest in plastic surgery and get the lowdown on your favorite stars from the editor of Soap Opera Digest. Join us, won't you? You'll learn all about it.
The Will Shriner Show, weekday mornings at 9 on WRTV Channel 6.
Among the hundreds of people we've seen tonight responding to today's tragedy, volunteers. A large number of Hoosiers donated their time and their hearts to those affected by this crash. Barbara Lewis reports on one group that is often the first to help.
We still do not have a list, and as soon as that list is made available, I believe we do have your name and number, and we will certainly try to get in touch with you.
The phone lines have been ringing off the hook since the plane went down. American Red Cross volunteers, supporting groups and staff were on the front lines today, from the accident scene helping emergency crews to the amateur radio operators who were in place and working a half hour after the crash, and to the phone operators that offered as much information and comfort as possible.
The biggest problem as far as an intake worker is the frustration of not having the knowledge to give them, be able to relieve their minds immediately.
You're too busy to feel the emotional impact during the time that we're taking the inquiries. Generally, any emotion will come later.
But Davis concedes it's hard not to feel the pain of the worried families that cannot locate a loved one. These volunteers here had perhaps the hardest job of all. They had to comfort the families asked to wait at the Adams Mark Hotel to possibly identify one of their loved ones as one of the 9 who died in the accident.
KC9OG, WA9LGQ.
But in whatever capacity, dozens of the volunteers today reacted to the need to help with untiring enthusiasm.
Roger, we'll be expecting your return here to the chapter. KC9OG, WA9LGQ, Red Cross chapter.
There will be a skeletal crew of volunteers on hand all night to help where they can. And tomorrow, many of the volunteers, very tired, will return to work in the morning to help ease the pain of this air disaster. Barbara Lewis, Channel 6 News.
So this is the way the situation stands at this hour. 9 people are dead after an A-7 Corsair fighter this morning crashed into the Airport Ramada Inn. 5 of those killed have not been identified. 6 people were injured, including the pilot who ejected before the impact. 3 remain hospitalized tonight, one of them in extremely critical condition. Authorities believe that the pilot tried to steer the plane away from a populated area but was forced to bail out at the last minute. Air Force personnel are on the scene tonight. They will begin a full-scale investigation tomorrow along with the FBI disaster team. Of course, we will continue to follow this story throughout tomorrow with updates during our early morning news. And this is really a community tragedy. It has left an indelible mark on anyone who saw and heard and felt those people.
And on behalf of all the staff who have been working very, very hard today to bring you the story, we want to stop for a minute and take a deep breath and offer our condolences to the families who lost loved ones today and offer the best hope to those who are recuperating from their injuries tonight.
Our prayers and our thoughts are with you. That is our special report. We will be back with the rest of the day's news in a moment.